So the topic I wanted to talk about today is preparing the due diligence request and being proactive about that. So before I get into trying to make my point, I'd like to hear from you guys. Let's say you're under contract, you've had the home inspection, you get the email that you and your client are copied on with the home inspection. What's your next step?
I review the inspection with my client,
Okay.
and then we decide on what they want to ask for to be fixed.
Now, when you say you review it with your client, do you get together? Do you do it on the phone? What's your approach typically?
I always do it on the phone, and we'll go through it together page by page and review what's on every page, and then I try to make them understand the small cosmetic things aren't as necessary as like a big thing. So instead of asking for a big thing and then like 10 little things, let's just like hit the big things that you want them to do. That way we don't give them the option to do something else that you could have done yourself that was like minimal cost.
So I think that actually starts like way before that. Is setting the expectation ahead so that when they get the doomsday report, because sometimes they get it before we see it, it's important for them to be like, oh my God, the house is falling apart. And you guys have all had it where, especially new home buyers are like freaked out by the way things are written and not knowing that, the home inspector has to write things a certain way to cover his butt. Yep. So I try to do it really at the initial consult first, and then when the home inspector goes out there, I also just remind them basically exactly what you just said, Felicia. Like if it's something that you can do yourself, if you can go to Lowe's and spend less than $20, it might not be worth asking for if it comes through,
because it can take away a bit from those bigger items. So you both made excellent points. We want to focus on asking for the big stuff, because if we ask for big and small stuff, they'll say no to the big stuff and fix all the penny stuff, right? So excellent point, Felicia. Also, Nate, yes, incredibly important. That's the whole point of the consult, right? Is to set expectations for how this is going to play out. And yeah, the inspection is a huge part of that. So you're not buying a new home. Even if you were, inspection items are going to come up. So we know the age of the roof, we know the age of the HVAC. We can't let age-related issues be something that is going to come up and cause us to have concerns about moving forward. Now, age-related versus other things are different. So I think we're all on the same page about that. But again, it is about setting those expectations. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, so
go ahead, Charles.
Thanks. So what I did most recently on one, after I talked to Doug about it, and that worked really well, is when my clients get the inspection report, I go ahead, let them know, hey, I got it as well. Depending when we got it, I say, look at it overnight. And what I'm going to do is I send them a filled out DD request with the items that I feel actually matter. And I'll explain it to them that, look, I'm going to send this to you. You review everything overnight of the inspection report. I'm going to send you the DD request with what I feel is needed. And then let's talk about it tomorrow. That way it helps to set that expectation of, look, the gutter is missing a downspout or like in a 90-degree elbow, doesn't matter. However, the HVAC unit not kicking on, that's a problem. So I put that list in there and then we talk about it and compare it. So, and that's like a way that I'm providing my expertise and my value to them that, look, I've done this before. I've been here. I know what matters. And I know what, like Doug was saying, you can just go to Home Depot or Lowe's for $20 and fix.
That's what I do too, Charles. I'll get the report and, hit the highlights and then send it over to them and say, hey, take a look. This is what I think, we should ask for. If you agree, go ahead and sign. If you have any questions, if you want to add anything else, I'm happy to add whatever you want, and I've had, some come back and be like, well, what do you think about X? Do you think that's necessary? I'm like, it's a shaking fan. It's probably not worth putting in there, or whatever the situation might be. But always do set that expectation. The more you ask for, the the less you'll probably get. But, you know, I have had
Do you think that puts some liability on the agent though? Like pre-filling it out and
I never do that. And here's why I don't do that. Because I don't want to call attention to something that they don't think is an issue and then make them more concerned about something that they may not have been thinking about. When I get the inspector that I try to use the most, or up here in Raleigh, we get the report the same time the buyer gets the report. As soon as my buyer has a chance to go over that report, I connect the buyer via text with the inspector. And the inspector knows that if you're going to do this for us, then you're going to have a phone conversation afterwards with the buyer to go over the report. So that way the buyer can flip through the report. Any questions they can have, they can ask the professional, because I'm not a general contractor. I'm not going to tell them because I don't know, and I'm not going to make a liability issue for myself. So once they have the opportunity to do that, then I speak with the buyer on the phone and I say, okay, give me a list of your concerns. I'll have a list of mine as well, but I want to know what they think because, you know, especially if they're not a first-time home buyer, some of these issues they may have encountered before. And if I bring something to their attention, they may think, well, what's the big damn deal? That's not what I'm focused on is this. And I want to get taken care of what is really a concern to them.
Yeah, I agree with all that, Brandon. I think that's really good. I do the same thing. I just ask that they call the inspector if they've got any questions or concerns about anything to be able to further explain it. And I can't tell you how many times I've had my clients call them. I think that's more beneficial than me trying to explain it, just because, like you said, that's not our expertise. And then I agree with you on I don't pre-fill out anything either, just because, and not to say that that's wrong, just for me, I don't feel comfortable doing that because you might have a client who, you know, on the side, they dabble in plumbing or they do whatever, and then they're not worried about those things. They're worried about things that maybe you wouldn't think that they would be because that's not their specialty, or they don't have a buddy who does that or something. So to me, I think everybody's going to be a little bit different in what they need. I don't know, just personal.
I'll give you an example of how I had a problem with that in the past. One time I had a inspection report back with a very minor leak, and to me it was like, it's not a big damn deal. You can get a plumber out there and they'll be done with this in 15 minutes. What I didn't know was that a home that they had owned prior, we had not discussed it at any point during the consult or throughout their search, they had significant plumbing issues and basically had their basement flooded and had to come in and rip out the flooring and replace it. They had to do a bunch of stuff. So to them, any possible water issue was a major deal. So I didn't want to, I learned from that, you know, you tell me what your concerns are. It's just, to me, it's been so much easier to go about it that way than me to try to explain to them now, if they give me their list and then they say, hey, what do you think? I may sprinkle some stuff in, but it all depends on what they tell me.
I think everybody makes really great points. I don't do it that way. I always tell them what I think first, and this is why. It's easier to add things to their list than to get them to take things off usually. So I start with the most important things, and I say, look, based on my experience, this is what I recommend. What other things do you have to add, or what do you have questions about? Because I can guarantee you my list is going to be pretty short. It's really just going to be the important things. Now, I 100% agree there's no one way to do this, and you should know your client well enough to know what you're comfortable with. I like to be proactive because I don't want somebody to already have something set in their mind that they really need to have happen, and then I have to talk them out of it. I'd rather them tell me, hey, I also want this done. And then I'll be like, you know what? You're exactly right. I didn't add it because of X. But if you want to add it, we can include it. Or at least to have a conversation about it before they've already cemented it to their list, and then it's too late to talk them out of it. Or then it looks like you're trying to talk them out of it. So that's why I take that approach. Obviously, people are having success with what they're doing. My point today was to make sure that you're being thoughtful about how you're going through this. And you're not just saying, hey, take it and send me your list and I'll fill it out. We'll go in there. Make sure you're reviewing it with your client to a degree. You're at least comparing notes. Of course, always let them know the inspector is there. I'm only having my folks talk to the inspector if it's really a serious issue, or if I know it's not a serious issue, so they can confirm that what they wrote in there was just a CYA that they have to write in the inspection report, because we've all had that issue before. I don't want them to have a lot of conversation reviewing the inspection report with the inspector, because inspectors will tell them things need to be done that we know don't need to be done a lot. And I don't want that to happen, because I know we've all had inspectors scare our clients out of deals because they've said something that was too late to take back, and not necessarily in the inspection report, but after they've had a conversation with them. So to recap, it's all about setting the expectation up front, Nate, so they aren't scared off by things. You know, I always tell people, hey, when we get that inspection report back, it's going to be 30 or 40 pages, and that's typical. So don't be afraid of it, because a home inspection report is like a homeowner's manual for your house, right? It's telling you things that need attention, but it's also telling you how things work. So don't be intimidated by it. It's a fantastic resource. And then at the same time, it's not a new house. So there are going to be items that need to be addressed, but we need to prioritize them and make sure that we're asking them to cover the things that affect safety, livability, systems, you know, electrical, plumbing, heating and air, those
I
types.
know Brad's really good about, he'll call me after he does the report, and he'll be like, hey, FYI, this is what's going on. Or sometimes I'll shoot a text when I know the inspections report's done. Hey, all good. What are the big things? What do you think? Just to kind of get an overview for, you know, what to expect on that report, and just a
I
heads
encourage
up.
you 100% to be proactive when you know your inspectors out there, and say, hey, let me know what's going on before you put the report together. Hey, text me when you're done. Is there any big things that we need to get ahead of, or that I need to start setting the expectation for, or that I need to make sure that I look out when I get the report? So yeah, please do be proactive in that regard. I think it makes a big difference. And then they can coach you on how to present it to your client if you need it. You know, that's what they're here for. Their job is to make our job easier. Adam, what you got?
You're muted, Adam. Adam, you're muted.
Hold on. There you go, Adam. Now you're unmuted.
Okay. I've always seen, due diligence and negotiations about repair items with the inspection as a negotiation, same as buying the house, with the key difference being they've accepted your offer. So you're not going to insult anybody by, asking for things on the repair list. So I've always taken the approach that I'm servicing my clients, maybe not ask for every little single thing on the repair sheet, but some of the bigger ones, even if you don't think they're going to accept them, it doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, a good example is a house that's sold in Durham for one of my buddies. He wanted to get the railing fixed out because you have to step up. There's concrete steps to go up, and he wanted the inspector advised that they put this railing in. The builder wouldn't do it, or the seller was the builder. He's like, because it's not required for code. But even still, I told my client, I was like, it didn't hurt to ask. I mean, he may have put it in. I don't know. I think that psychology of everything's negotiable. One of my earliest deals, one of the listing agents told me that. He's like, Adam, everything's negotiable. And it kind of sunk in with me that, you're not going to insult them by asking for things that are legitimate items on that inspection report. But again, it doesn't mean you just want to send them the inspection report and say, fix everything. Totally agree as far as talking with your client, pointing out the big ones. Only once have I ever really had a situation where it was like a demand that the 2 units, the air conditioning, the condenser on the second floor was just kaput. And we had to insist that got fixed. Seller fixed it. We closed. Beautiful deal. So I agree with Doug. If it's an older house and it's on there, the seller's going to have to at least acknowledge it's there. Now, that doesn't mean they have to pay to fix it unless it's a major repair item. But I've just always taken the approach, if I'm representing a buyer, that I'm servicing them by that idea. It's not going to hurt to ask. And I don't think if they've accepted a financial offer, they're necessarily going to be insulted by you asking for things on that inspection report. That's just all I would say.
I think it's all relative to the situation. I think if you're in multiple offers, they might tell you to hit pound sand. Okay. Sorry.
I've never been in a multiple offer. So,
right. So it's going to be all about the market.
Yeah.
in a triangle. If they accept it, you were in multiples, they've got you in a fix a little bit. If
You
they're
better
willing to
take.
come
You
back on
better
the
go
market.
with it.
The big thing is setting the expectation that homes are sold as is. It's in the offer to purchase. Sellers aren't required to make anything. Now, if it ends up being a material fact, well, then they're going to have to deal with it anyway. So you can always gently remind their agent, well, hey, now you're looking at a material fact. And you're going to have to address it if you go back on the market anyway. So you might as well handle it because you've got somebody here who wants to buy the house. So all relative, of course. Big things, make sure you set the expectation for your client.
Well, Doug, one thing that, and guys, this was the situation that I had a couple weeks ago, and we got a good solution. You know, if you're setting up a showing for your clients, and you look at the property disclosures, and you can see right off the bat that the roof on the house is 18 years old, and then something in inspection comes up that the roof needs some work. Well, you knew the roof was 18 years old when you stepped in the front door to see the house the first time. You knew it was old. We have to explain to our client that we knew this was this old when we got here. We can't expect them to put up a brand new roof. You already knew it was old. I mean, negotiate, making adjustments, repairs with us, of course, but you can't expect them to put a brand new roof on the house.
Right.
And if they start talking about, well, you know, we can find another house if they don't, we have to remind them, okay, at this point, you know, you've got $4,000 in due diligence. You've already spent $1,000 in inspections. You've spent $500 on appraisal. You really want to walk away from this thing, lose $5,500? I mean, that's obviously those are worst case scenarios, but you know,
How
if
did
you
you
know
deal
that
with that?
A lot
What did
of
you
due
end up doing?
diligence.
what?
Four
What'd they end up
grand's a
doing
lot
about
of
the
due
roof?
diligence.
Well, I mean, that's how,
Raleigh,
that's
in
how
Raleigh,
it is
you get an
there.
offer,
I mean,
you
that's
got to
how
do
it
it.
is. But, you know, if again, the point is if the HVAC system, you know, right off the bat is 15 years old, we got to tell our folks, ride that thing until it falls apart. You know, they're not going to replace it. It's already 15 years old.
Yeah. Now, if it's not working already,
That's
and we
different.
didn't know that, that's completely different.
Right.
But just because and here's where inspectors will screw the pooch, end of life, end of use, budget to replace.
Near
That
the
doesn't mean
end
the
of
seller's
life.
going to replace it.
What'd you
that
say,
again.
Felicia?
It always says nearing end of life.
Right.
Or-
Yeah.
But I was in that same exact situation in my Jacksonville house. I just sold. The AC unit was 18 years old, and he was like, I want it replaced. And I just told him, like, if it ain't broke, they ain't gonna fix it. So if the HVAC is an issue for you, then we're gonna ask for the home warranty.
Home warranty.
And in the home warranty, it doesn't mean it'll always cover it. So you just need to make sure you get your HVAC inspection, your home inspection, and then we'll have the home warranty in place to, you know, to help any way that we can, but they're not going to replace it if it's not broke. So
You guys and advise your patients, your clients on the property disclosure to do the HVAC from the, you know, the beginning, or do you just wait for the inspection report to come back and then based on what that says, advise the HVAC inspection, or do you just go based on the property itself, or how do
I
you
recommend all
advise
inspections.
about?
I just tell them I recommend all inspections. It's obviously it's their choice, but, and then they'll ask, does the home inspection cover some of these things? Well, to a certain extent, but not in depth.
Right.
So
I think if you're going in and you know the roof is old and potentially shot, or the HVAC is old and potentially shot, or the septic is old and potentially shot, or any of those things are old and potentially shot, I might go ahead and recommend those. As a general rule, I say I don't see the reason to spend the extra money at this point. Let's see what the home inspection reveals. And if it says that we need a closer look at this, we'll ask the seller to do that as part of the due diligence. Now that's typically my script.
I don't want to scare.
It's always good to recommend everything. Just depends on what people are comfortable paying for. A lot of people are like, I don't know if I've got another $250 to pay for that.
That's how I kind of do it too, as far as like just going through the PSD. I don't really recommend per se. Everything I just kind of tell them like, hey, you know, it depends what type of person you are. You know, obviously if you want peace of mind, then you want to get as much of these inspections as possible. But, you know, obviously cost comes into it too. So I just tell you kind of like what a lot of people do when I talk to them and what everybody should do. And I kind of leave it like that. So for instance, like if I'm coming up to the home inspector, I say, hey, I've never had anybody not get a home inspection. And that's how I put it to them. And like if I get to a survey, I'll say, this is kind of a 50-50. Some people do it, some people don't. They're costly, but it could be costly down the road when you're tearing down your fence because there was an easement you didn't know about. So that's how I approach that.
I'm pretty much the same, and I'll do the same thing. I'll go line by line and be like, yeah, I always recommend this. You should always do this. On this, based on what we know, maybe we can hold off and let's see if anything comes up on the home inspection that points that we should have a specialist come out and take a look. Now, with a septic, I'll probably always recommend that we have
Always, yeah.
Hey, I do have a question though. So being that the buyer's paying for the home inspection, and I don't know if it's a conflict or frowned upon, but if you find something out prior to the home inspection, should you let the home inspector know, or should it just be something that they discover on their own?
Yeah, I'll be like, hey, I know this. I want you to make sure you take a hard look at it when you're out there.
When you're walking through the house, I do this. Not every time, because I don't think every house needs it, but like I got a house under contract right now, and when we were there before we made the offer, we saw some stuff in the basement, some cracks. I think they're mostly cosmetic, but I wanted to be sure they weren't structural. So when we scheduled the inspection, I sent the guy a list and was like, hey, I need you to check out A, B, C, and D. And that's the value that they should be providing us, if they want to do business with us. I can't imagine anybody would have a problem with it. And it also shows, right, your buyers that you're taking care of them.
100%. Great question, Nate. Good way to be proactive and provide additional value and make sure that things that stand out to you really get a hard look from somebody who knows how to answer it. So, well, we're going. Go ahead.
I just have a really quick question. Do you guys recommend a septic inspection on a brand new construction? Anybody?
I would. I recommend it on brand new construction because, unless you're going to go back in 11 months and have the septic inspected before the end of your warranty, now is really the time to find out if it's screwed up or not. To me, it's just like it's new construction.
The new construction I had in Hampstead, the lender required that they had a well and septic.
That was VA though, right?
What type of loan?
Yes, sir. It was VA.
Yeah.
VA is always going to do it.
So anytime there's a septic, I tell any of my clients, like, hey, if it's dealing with poo, you might want to check it out.
I get a septic and well inspection every single time, unless I've had this happen twice, unless the house was sold relatively recently, like within the last 3 years. And then I'll ask the listing agent if the seller still have their report. And if they do, I've had some people that haven't done it, but I always recommend septic and well. And if you get like an FHA loan, you're probably FHA and VA, you're probably going to have the well inspected anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like for new construction, it hasn't really been put to use yet. And that kind of scares me. Like, is it done right? At least for a already built home, it's been in use, and
does it need to be pumped or whatever? Yeah.
Right.
So my thing was, I just thought that the county had to come out and inspect it, and it passed inspection. So I guess I'm misunderstanding.
Well, they do that for the house too, though.
Yeah.
All the wiring and everything. I mean, some people will opt not to do a home inspection because they passed all the county and city inspections as well. So
true.
But I'm glad that you said that, because now it gives everybody a chance to kind of understand it. So hopefully what today accomplished was maybe it gave you a little bit different way to think about how you're approaching it. If nothing else, maybe it makes sure you're being very thoughtful and mindful going through the due diligence process, being very proactive, providing your client with guidance, but also giving them what they're asking for, as long as it is within realistic expectations. And paramount to all of this is that you're setting the expectations for how this could play out at the very beginning as well.
So let me ask you this on the sell side, guys, since my thing's going live tomorrow. How do you advise your sellers when they get the DD report and they're like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing all of this. Do you go one by one, line by line, and, you know, have them decide what they want to fix? I mean, obviously it's up to them what they're going to do. I mean, do you guys run into issues more on the sell side with sellers with the DD?
Oh, definitely. Sellers don't want to fix any. Well, in my experience, they don't want to do anything. That's been my luck for all of mine.
Do you find that like, well, we didn't know that this was a problem, or like, I mean.
Remember when you said you didn't want to do a home inspection as part of the listing process?
Right. Here it is. Yeah.
So that's a good expectation to set when you're going through the listing document and saying, hey, would you like to go ahead and get a home inspection done so you can get ahead of any issues that are out there? Oh, no, I take great care of my house. Okay. Typically things come up that people are unaware of, so I just want to prepare you for that. Oh, remember when you said you didn't want to have a home inspection done and I said some things would probably come up? Hey, here are the items that came up. So these are material facts, and we're going to have to disclose them if they terminate, walk away because you won't fix it. Because I'm bound to do that. That's my duty. Or I lose my license. I'm not going to lose my license.
I guess my question is, like, how do you advise your sellers in that situation so they don't?
Well, it's going to be on the item. These I think we can ignore. You know, these are the main ones. These people, to me, ask for a lot of things. I think we should cut some of these off.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, if they're asking for a bunch of little things and one big thing, well, do all the little things, because then you did 10 things and you just left the one. I mean, kind of the opposite for your buyer.
And also, don't forget that you
Hey guys, I gotta go. I'm sorry.
It's okay, thanks.
Sorry. Bye.
With the have a conversation with the other agents or even talk to your clients. Hey, you know, I looked at the list and we're getting ready to talk about these. You know, what are really their priorities here? Because they ask for a lot.
Okay.
You know, just be thoughtful in how you approach it. There's not going to be one answer.
Do you as sellers ever get a situation where they don't share the inspection report with you?
Well, if they don't share the inspection report,
how do you know?
Just send it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
I do tell my sellers to try to be as accommodating as possible. Obviously, budget. If they're making a lot, they have more room. If they're coming close to breaking even, that's a different story. But I do advise them, you know, to be as accommodating as they can.
I mean, it's going to be pretty clear. Some things need to be addressed. Wouldn't you want these addressed if you were buying a home? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get these taken care of. Maybe these other things aren't so important. Maybe we can counter back and take those off, but focus on the important ones.
And I know that on RDD it says buy a GC. Do your sellers have issues with that when they get that report from a buyer?
That actually brings up a good point. I wanted to ask Doug this anyway, because we just had one come across where it did not say that, and my guy's really handy. So should I tell them, it didn't say it had to be by a contractor. Should I make them aware, like, hey, he'll do these things, but he's doing them himself?
Yeah, I get that from the list agents. They'll tell me that, hey, the husband's a handyman, and they'll send before and after pictures or receipts or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I do the same thing, and I just ask my buyers if it's okay with them.
Yeah.
If it's your buyers, you just make sure it's okay, and then it's worded correctly on the DD report so everybody knows what to expect as far as receipts and invoice and everything. For a seller, if they ask you for something, Stephanie, and you say, yeah, my client will handle it, that's the answer.
Okay.
Now, you know, advise your people to do the stuff the right way.
Right.
Because what I'll always recommend for my buyer clients, if a seller says they're going to do something on their own and it's pretty specific, I'll counter back with, okay, but the seller's looking for a re-inspection to make sure it was done right.
Have you guys ever had re-inspections go out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet.
Great discussion. I think it was helpful for everybody. I hope so. Some good things to think about. Thanks for everybody for participating and answering, asking all of those things. I'll add it to the agent resources page so it's there for our posterity and you guys can revisit. I'll be talking to some of you very soon. Go have a great day and I'll talk to you Thursday.
Thank you.
Don't forget
Bye,
to do
y'all.
other stuff. I'll text you when the final in dot loop, okay?
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, guys.